Katt Williams has never been one to sugarcoat, so when he sat down and started talking about Tyler Perry, he didn't do the usual industry dance around names. He said what many had only dared to whisper. Perry's casting process doesn't just hinge on talent, it leans heavily on silence, submission, and knowing your place. According to Katt, landing a role in one of Tyler's productions isn't about the strength of your audition. It's about how well you follow the rules nobody puts on paper. He called it what it is, a loyalty system, and not the kind that comes from mutual respect. We're talking the kind that expects you to look the other way, or disappear quietly. Katt said, "I don't even need to touch you. I just want to see you maintain integrity with me. I'll take the long way around." You could hear the weariness in his voice, like someone who's watched too many people take shortcuts and pay for them later. He even admitted he had to start recording conversations just to protect himself. "I told him over and over, he still tried, so I recorded it. And if people don't believe me, I can press play. You'll hear the man offering me 100 grand to strip. You'll hear it, and your heart will break." Katt never pointed fingers directly, no names, no initials. But honestly, he didn't have to. The way he described it, you could almost see it the way certain actors keep showing up again and again in the same circles, while others just quietly disappear. And it's not because they're suddenly untalented or hard to work with, it's quieter than that. More calculated. According to him, a lot of the casting isn't just about who can act, it's about who knows how to stay in line. Who's willing to keep their head down and their mouth shut when things behind the scenes start to feel uncomfortable. It's about silence. Loyalty, not to the craft, but to the person calling the shots. That's the unspoken currency. And if you speak out, if you say the wrong thing, push back on something that feels off, or even just ask too many questions, that's when you start to notice things shift. Your name isn't on the short list anymore. The callbacks dry up. People who used to greet you with hugs suddenly act like they don't know you. You're not fired exactly, you're just quietly phased out. And that's the part that hurts the most. There's no confrontation, no conversation. Just a slow, steady fade until your presence in the industry feels like it never even happened. One minute you're part of the story. Next you're invisible. That's the kind of professional exile Katt was talking about. And for actors, especially black actors who already face a smaller pool of opportunity, that kind of blacklisting can end a career before it begins. It's not a rumor mill kind of punishment. It's subtle, intentional, and incredibly effective, because it doesn't just remove you from a project, it erases you from the narrative. And then there's the pattern. The same faces were circling through Perry's universe again and again, the sudden disappearances of others who seemed like they were just getting started. Katt hinted at under-the-table deals, side payments, promises made quietly behind closed doors. Tyler Perry hasn't said a word, at least not publicly. But the questions aren't going away. And they're not coming from Twitter threads or random blogs. They're coming from people who've been in the room, people who've felt the pressure and seen the dynamics up close. One actress who worked on Meet the Browns said it outright. "That was the most stressful experience of my life. I had no idea the schedule was that brutal." She explained that while most network shows take a full week to shoot one episode, Perry's studio churns out entire episodes in a single day. The pace is relentless. The pressure, suffocating. It's not a set, it's a machine. Then came the lawsuit. $260 million. Allegations that Perry tried to get too close to a young white male actor. The timing of the lawsuit landed like a second wave right after Katt started pulling the curtain back. And whether by coincidence or consequence, people started connecting the dots. Too many of them to ignore. Making it out of poverty and into billionaire territory is one thing. Doing it clean, with integrity intact, is another story entirely. And if you ask Katt Williams and now several others, Tyler Perry's rise wasn't just powered by hustle and talent. There were trade-offs, quiet ones. Once nobody wants to say it out loud until someone finally does. Katt Williams didn't just wake up one day and start talking. He's been alluding to this stuff for years, sometimes in interviews, sometimes slipped into his stand-up routines, just as quiet observations that make you think twice after the laughter fades. What he's been saying in his way is that in Hollywood, especially black Hollywood, not every opportunity is as clean as it looks on paper. Some roles don't just require acting chops or experience. They come with invisible price tags, the kind that don't show up in the credits but weigh heavily behind closed doors. And it's not just random casting directors or studio execs he's pointing to. He's talking about the ones held up as success stories, the ones applauded for making it out and building platforms for other black creatives, the ones people call symbols of black excellence. Katt's message has always been, just because someone looks like they're opening doors, doesn't mean they're doing it with pure intentions. Some of those doors only swing open for people who are willing to play the game, who won't question power, won't resist uncomfortable requests, and most importantly, won't speak up. And every time this subject comes up, there's one name that hovers over the conversation like smoke from a slow-burning fire. Tyler Perry. Not because Katt hates him, but because over and over he keeps being tied to the same whispered stories about control, about manipulation, about how some people rise while others quietly fall away. Katt hasn't always said it directly, but the pattern he points to tells its own story. And if you've been listening, really listening, you start to realize he's been trying to warn us for a long time. And this isn't Katt being petty. He said to himself, there's no grudge. He respects Perry's work ethic, respects what he's built. But that doesn't mean he's gonna stay quiet while people get used, then discarded. Because according to Katt, what's happening behind the scenes isn't just shady, it's harmful. He went as far as to say that Perry isn't just performing in drag on screen. That there's a lifestyle off camera involving younger men and power dynamics that blur every boundary of what's professional or safe. And Katt didn't say that for shock value. He said it because he believes people deserve to know what's happening behind the gate. That brings us to Brandon J. If the name doesn't ring a bell, he played Jeffrey in Meet the Browns. Or at least, that's who he thought he was cast to play. A high school athlete, straightforward role. But on set, the script changed. Suddenly Jeffrey wasn't just a bullied student, he was rewritten into a gay teen with a crush on his bully. And this change? It came directly from Tyler Perry himself, unannounced, mid-shoot, with the director standing off to the side like a silent warning. Brandon was blindsided. This wasn't the character he auditioned for. And the way it was done, no discussion, no heads up, just fed into the larger pattern that Katt had already been naming. Young black men are being asked to compromise themselves or risk being cut out altogether. There's Derek Dixon too. He played Dale on The Oval. But what started as a career break has now turned into a $260 million lawsuit. According to Derek, this all traces back to a night in 2019 when Tyler Perry spotted him at an event. Perry asked for his number, told him he saw something in him. Within months, Derek was cast in Ruthless, on the surface a win. But according to Derek, that role came with strings he didn't see coming. He says he was invited to Perry's Atlanta home, believed it was a work meeting. He drank too much, fell asleep in a guest room. And that's when, according to him, Perry crossed the line, placing a hand on his thigh. Derek says he shut it down immediately. But things didn't stop there. Later he was cast in The Oval, this time as Dale, a gay, homeless store clerk who sleeps around to survive. It felt too specific, especially given the allegations, especially when Derek says Perry told him, point blank, that he'd been looking for someone who matched that exact character in real life. And if you're thinking, maybe it was just the role, Derek says he's got the receipts, screenshots, text messages, dates, times, and exact quotes, including ones where Perry allegedly called him the Rose, and sent messages that crossed every line of professionalism. Now Perry's team is calling the lawsuit a setup, a cash grab. But Derek says he isn't doing this for headlines. He says he felt trapped, like if he pushed back too hard, his career would be over before it even started, so he tried to deflect. Told Perry, I'm not the typical type, just to keep things neutral, just to survive the moment. And suddenly, everything Katt Williams has said about the system starts to feel less like theory and more like a warning. Katt once pointed to what happened with Dave Chappelle, how he walked away from a $50 million Comedy Central deal, not because he was ungrateful, but because he didn't want to be a puppet. And instead of being heard, they spun a narrative about him being unstable. Same thing with Mariah. Same thing with Martin Lawrence, who was running through the streets screaming, "They're trying to kill me!" It always seems to happen right as these stars are crossing into the next tier. Like the system protects the gate, and anyone who tries to blow it open gets labeled crazy. That's what makes Derek's case even more complicated, because just as he's stepping forward, so maybe this isn't just about casting choices or celebrity drama. Maybe it's about what happens when silence becomes currency, and truth starts to cost too much. Katt Williams didn't mention names to go viral. He spoke from a place of experience, calling out a system that rewards compliance over integrity. Whether you believe every word or not, one thing's clear in Hollywood: what we see on screen is only half the story. Let us know what you think in the comments. Is this just noise, or are we finally hearing the truth slip through the cracks? And if you're here for real stories told with real voices, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button.